Welcome to another edition of Courtside with Coach Prohm. Here with legendary radio broadcaster Neal Bradley and his sidekick Kenny Roth, two really impactful people here in Racer Nation. We are here, we don't get over here much, but we are here in the Pogue Library, and I don't even know enough about the Pogue Library to tell you what section we're in. But we've got nice couches and we've got a great setup, and so we're here and ready to get going. Guys, thank y'all for being a part. Obviously, sure. This is my swan song with you, man. This is our last radio telecast together. Man, you guys have spent since 2015 together, an amazing team. Neal, think about these numbers, guys. 32 years, started in 1991, saw the opening of the CFSB Center, the bank, called over 1,000 games, called over 700 wins, 17 regular season OVC championships, 7 head coaches. So great job and thank you, man. And you're as good as there is out there. And so, and then Kenny, I don't think people really know, how impactful you are, and really now behind the scenes, our program, and you've had so many roles here. Coach, assistant Scott Edgar, an administrator, okay, an assistant AD. And now, obviously, the color guy on the radio, but also a big support of our program and a guy that I lean on a lot. And so thank you guys for all you do for Racer Nation. And so got a lot of stuff to get to here. And I've been looking forward to this, you two guys, getting you guys together. But real quick, Kenny, I'll start with you. How did you get into coaching? And really, why did you want to become a coach? Because obviously that was your first path.
It was. I was fortunate enough to be a student assistant, as you were, at the University of Arkansas for Eddie Sutton, and so got a view into a high major program. He was a great teacher of half court defense and motion offense, and he went to Kentucky, and then Nolan Richardson came to Arkansas and kept me on as a student assistant, then a grad assistant, and very different philosophy. As he was about 94 feet, he was, I'll never forget, he had just a very different teaching method. And he was there for 2 weeks, and I can remember calling my dad and said, I don't think this guy knows what he's doing, because he didn't do anything like Coach Sutton did. Went on to win a national championship, but it taught me the importance of relationships and getting to see that coaches had an impact on people's lives, and that's what attracted me to the college level, was seeing those guys and their staffs and how they interacted, and obviously at a high level, getting to go to NCAA tournaments and seeing that side of things. But I really, you don't ever know if you're going to get back to that level, but I wanted to try to coach at the college level, and so that was where my path started, was at the University of Arkansas.
Yeah, speaking of Arkansas, I was a manager at Alabama, and during the heydays of Nolan's teams, to where 94, I was a freshman at Alabama. They won the national championship, and then 95 they went to the Final Four. Alabama was actually the first team to beat them in the new Bud Walton in 95. But I remember Scotty Thurman, Corliss Williamson, Alex Dillard, Clint McDaniel. I mean, and I miss Corey Beck. I'm missing some great players during that time.
What Coach Richardson had the ability to do is to get players to play harder than they ever dreamed they could play. And really at the end of the day, as coaches, if you say, that for 30 games, our teams are going to be the hardest playing team every night, you've got a great chance to have a great season. And that was such a very simple but very valuable lesson that he taught me every day in practice.
Neal, turn it over to you. Okay, radio. All right, how do you get your start, and where'd the passion come from being a broadcaster?
Well, I, like a lot of people, listened to radio, baseball broadcasts, mainly when I was a real young kid, and then was able to, when I was a teenager, 13, 14, found out where Murray State basketball was after attending a Murray Western game. I gotta find out where they are. So could barely pick up WNBS and where I lived outside of Benton, and heard Shuff it, so I developed a love for Racer basketball, but I wasn't worried about being in the radio because I was gonna play Major League Baseball. And then once I got to the American Legion and couldn't hit the worst pitchers, I thought I might need another path. And radio was something I'd thought about because I enjoyed listening to Jack Buck, Harry Carey. My dad knew Jim Freeland. He was out at our shop. My dad was an auto repair guy, and Jim needed some help calling some games, keeping stats for him is all it was. So I got my start there, got a job at WCBL part-time as a DJ, but eventually wanted to call sports when the opportunity arose. But was a DJ for years until I got that opportunity.
Did you have a favorite announcer or somebody you kind of looked up to?
Jack Buck was probably the guy, but I loved Harry Carey. At the time I heard him on the radio, and I didn't realize it might be, it could be, it is. The ball was already in the seats during half of that, but it's still, I didn't know it as a radio guy. You know, I'm listening and like, that could be a home run. It's already, the guy's at third base by now. But Vin Scully, once I was able to hear him, couldn't hear him as a kid, never had a chance to, I think he's the greatest.
Is there and we're going to ask you about your calls here in a little bit, but what about Jack Buck? Does he have one call that sticks out in your mind?
The Ozzie Smith home run in the playoffs, I think, was my best, the home run by the Wizard. So unexpected. There's guys you expect to hit home runs. A guy that hits 2 a year, you don't expect one to hit one in one of the biggest moments, and it be a walk-off home run. So, yeah, that's the iconic call to me.
Yeah, no, that's good. Kenny, you worked here under Coach Edgar. We're bringing him back here this summer, Hoopalooza, which is a big deal to our program and the history of our program. The stories, I asked Marcus this, you know, there's your edited Scott Edgar stories and your unedited.
Right.
And we have camera work, we can edit, but tell me just your experiences. Obviously, you guys had a great run here. He did a fantastic job. And what's really cool about Coach Edgar is he's really stayed in touch and stayed connected to obviously Marcus, yourself, me, came to a game this year, very connected to the program still. But can you talk about your just experiences under him here?
What I love about Scott to this day is he still says we when he's talking about the Racers. Hey, we've got to do, you know, it's like he's still in it. He and I were on the staff together at Arkansas is how we met. And for the first 2 years, and then I left working, my way up and was at Georgia State in Atlanta when he got the job at Murray State. And so I accepted the job sight unseen. I'd never been to Murray, but knew I wanted to work with Scott and knew a lot about, obviously, the success that Murray State was having under Steve Newton. And when we got here, we inherited Popeye Jones, which was a great gift for your first team. What we weren't smart enough to understand is that, we were going to press and play like they did at Arkansas, and that type of team wasn't here. And so started off 3-10 and with Popeye Jones. And so I'm sure the radio guys were questioning what was going on there. And finally, we got to the point that we understood we had to play a little slower, gamble less defensively. Ended up winning 13 out of the last 15, winning the league, winning the tournament, and going on to play Arkansas. And then, over that 4 years, won the league 3 times. Had a great run and went to the tournament twice. Scott was, a lot of young head coaches. You look back on our history here, and as you were, so many coaches called their first time out here, and so there's not a lot of experience like you have now. So, he was learning on the fly, but was very aggressive, coached a lot like Coach Richardson, got guys to play really hard. And then we recruited to the system and got more athletic guys and were able to press. I'll never forget the first time I walked in Racer Arena when I got here, and it was empty, of course, and I walked in there through the end zone tunnel, and I looked and I was like, how are we going to recruit to this place? Because just empty, it's not very impressive. And Scott said, it'll be okay. They said that it gets full and loud. And our first home game was against SIU, and they were really good. We scored 98 points that night and got beat. It gave up 105, I think. But you saw what the atmosphere could be like in Racer Arena and what the job was all about.
Picking back off Coach Edgar and obviously a lot of the success, you've been here, followed the program, you just said, since you were a kid. Radio guy, you did such a great job on the road of just, being us knowing you were a part of the group, but I don't want to say overstep your bounds, but nothing left the circle, right? What makes this place so special, right? You've seen it all in really the last 20, 30 years, right? What makes this, I always say when people ask me, it's the community. During my first year here, it's, like what's in the water in Murray, Kentucky, and it's just, you show up, you win, and but guys want to come back here too, and that's not always like that at all programs. But what in your eyes, what makes this place so special?
Well, for me, unlike you guys, you came here, it's home to me. This is where I went to college. I went to college here. I listened to them when I was a kid. This is, I'm not saying my school, but I'm a part of it. And I think that's the big thing for me. But then the community, basketball, and other sports too, but predominantly basketball, it's just entwined here. And it has been ever since I came to my very first game, when there was somehow, not really sure how, about 8,000 people in a 5,500 seat arena. So anyhow, I think the statute of limitations is good on that right now, but that to me is the biggest thing. The fans, their passion, and also the losing years. I've called one losing year. So that's the winning tradition too, but people expect the winning tradition as well. But that's what makes it special. And the players who come here, I think they're able to absorb that. They go, my gosh, people are amazing here. And that's why they come back for Hoopalooza. They don't feel like, well, they just used us for basketball and spit us out. We're part of the community. This is home for us anytime we want to come back. To me, that's what makes it special.
I use this example in recruiting all the time. Marcus Brown, right? Obviously one of the best players to ever play here. But he comes back to work here 25 years after finishing playing, right? Yeah. And he has those connections, obviously, with so many people in the community. The Suitors, obviously, was really close with, obviously, y'all's relationship. But think about that. He comes back to campus 25 years later. And so I use that in recruiting all the time, from that standpoint, and, having multiple players on your staff. Sure. I think that piece is huge. What about for you? What to you makes this place so special?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things, but to piggyback off what Neal said, it matters here. Basketball matters to not only to Murray but to West Kentucky, and so there's a commitment. So that commitment turns into people buying tickets, which increases revenue, and quite frankly, one of the big separators for the Murray State program over the last 25 years is from a budgetary standpoint. Murray State has committed financially to men's basketball and to essentially, in the arms race of recruiting better and traveling better and the academic support here, but all that comes at a financial cost, and Murray State was at the top, not only in winning, but also in what they invested in the program. And, that was in the OVC. And, now we're being in a new league, that's a different position for us. We've got to get to where we're in the top third of spending on our program. But that, along with the commitment of the fans that, I used to say, are with you win or lose, maybe some nights win or tie, but people, just buy in, and kids from an early age like Neal start coming to games. And so when they grow up, they become fans, and it becomes part of the fabric of who they are. Yeah,
and people say it, but the basketball program is this community and really university's identity. Yeah. And, it's provided so many great memories. Let's brag on Neal for a minute real quick. Talk about Neal and the impact that he's had on you as a radio analyst and a color guy, but also the impact he's had on our program.
So for me, being a coach and being a fan, you obviously listen to color guys, but I'd never done it. And the one thing from the start that Neal taught me, without him being teacher-student, he never would do that to me as much as I wanted him to say, hey, coach me, tell me what I'm doing good and bad.
Put that drink in the right spot.
Yeah, the very first game that I did, we were getting ready to go on the air, and open up a Diet Coke and set it in the slot on the scorer's table. Well, there was no bottom to it, and so it goes all the way through to the floor and explodes all over the equipment, and we're on the air, and I'm sure Neal is like, what have I got myself into? but what Neal taught me was the importance of preparation and doing it in a class manner, and so I quickly saw his preparation, what he did, and that forced me to make sure that I was prepared, of not only what we're trying to do as a team, but what our opponents are trying to do. But what Neal does better than anyone, and I would say it when he wasn't here, that I've ever listened to, is he's able to articulate in real time what's happening on the court so that you could close your eyes and visualize where that ball is moving around and what's happening on that court. And that's an unbelievable skill to be able to have that, to be able to say that, as quickly as you have to say it, and then describe in detail what's happening out there. And it's been phenomenal for us. We've become best friends. We love being together, and you spend so much time off the air together that you get to where you like each other or don't like each other, and so that's been great for me, and it's going to be a real void in me from a friendship of walking in, and Neal's always the first guy in the arena, and so when you get there 2 hours before, he's already there waiting on it, and he's got everything prepared to go, and just learned so much about the art of the broadcasting that he does unbelievably well.
Because people don't see behind the scenes. I mean, they just think maybe you're just the color guy, but you're asking us for scouting reports. You're talking to us about personnel. You're watching Valparaiso play multiple times.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you can put it all together, and it's just not show up and call the game. Just because you were a basketball coach one time.
The color guy, I've got some time to be able to calculate what happened, what I'm going to say. Whereas what Neal does, he's got a whole new team that he just learned, and he knows their names so that when that ball's moving around, he's saying that correctly. And it's just, I think it's a skill that's unlike anything else. Even play-by-play on TV is much easier than what Neal does on radio, because you actually have to paint that picture so that the listeners can visually see that.
Any other great road story outside the spilled drink that you can share off the top of your head?
Not really. I mean, most of them happen in cold weather environments, and he's never there.
Yeah.
If it's cold, he doesn't go.
Yeah.
It's nice
We'll
and
get
sunny.
we'll get to these couple. I do have a couple. Do you have a and I don't know, that may be a sly shot at us not going to South Dakota State while I was here.
No.
He just waited till
do you have a great coaching story or just an interaction that you had with one of the 7 head coaches that you worked for? A funny story or anything?
I'm trying to think on that one. I think I remember this one. I think it was the 2012 OVC Tournament Championship. We had won it, and you have to go do other things, but you came to our table. We got the cue from the station that we were on. Hello, Steve Prohm. You had your headset on, and the first thing we get is smooching between you and Katie, and each of you telling that I love you and all this stuff, and I just let it roll. And then we started I thought that was a cool reaction, because it really did capture the moment. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't fake. And that was kind of cool. It's kind of the second weirdest thing I've ever heard. The other thing didn't involve a coach, but if you want to hear it, I'll tell you. The year before the Racers had their great football season in 1995, they went unbeaten in the regular season. The last game of 1994, we were hammered at Eastern Illinois 70-something to 7 or something like that. It was bad. So we're in Macomb, Illinois. Everybody basically deserted. And at Western Illinois, it's an enclosed booth, but at your feet, there's a little box that you can pull open, and you hang a crowd mic out so it doesn't sound like you're doing golf, so you can hear the crowd noise. Well, unbeknownst to us, a couple of little kids, I saw them marching up, but they moved up next to the microphone. So there's like a minute to go, and I don't remember the play, and it's like Sam Rickman was doing the game with me. He's like, 3rd and 3, and they run it for 2 yards off the right tackle. And this little girl, because she's right by the mic, says, "If you try to kiss me again, I'm going to slap you." Just like we were holding a mic. So I had to take a moment and explain to our audience, hey, let me tell you what's going on. She's not in our booth. There's nothing crazy. These are 2 little kids right in front of us. And so I thought that was the craziest thing I've ever had on the air.
Not to put you on the spot because you've seen, but is there one season that you can just think back and say, goodness gracious, I enjoyed that?
Yeah, your season. It's not because you're sitting there. It's because, I mean, man, you got a new coach, guys never coached before, and you figure, hey, man, if you can have a winning season, it'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
So we've always joked that I think Billy probably told you, look, if you're going to be the head coach, you got to win here. And you go, well, how many in a row do I need to win to start out? And you guys just shrugged, and you just kept winning. But the thing about that season is it was unexpected. Yeah. And it just built. You get the win at UAB, win at Memphis. You go to Great Alaska Shootouts. You win that. On and on. That record builds to 23 in a row before that. The only thing that's really brought tears to my eyes is going in to SIU Edwardsville and having them shout overrated to us while we're marching in. That was just like, you've arrived whenever they're shouting overrated to you. Then we went in there and thumped in. That was just a fantastic season. When they did lose, the response to losing was fantastic. Pressure was off. Just everything about that. The national publicity, it was absolutely amazing. I just really loved it. And also, you were able to coach what I call the most boring game in NCAA tournament history. And I don't mean boring in a bad way. We win it against Colorado State, and the fans are like, 2 years ago, Vanderbilt, they're celebrating, oh my gosh, you beat Colorado State, and it was a fantastic win. Clinical defense, and people were like, okay. That's where you had brought the program. It was here where NCAA tournament win was massive. Now suddenly, hey, we expect you to win the NCAA tournament games. And that's what I loved about that season.
Yeah, you talk about that, and really the program's been good for so long. I mean, you look at the arena banners hanging from the 50s. Yeah. But I think the last 10 to 13, 15 years, it's been surreal. Yeah. Top 25 rankings, lottery picks, tournament wins, conference tournament championships, tournament, in-season tournament championships, and you can go on. And I really think Coach Kennedy really laid the foundation for that. Obviously, that's my mentor, and I think about you had a great story just to talk about us developing toughness, and Coach saying we got to get tougher.
Yeah, and I didn't know what he was talking about. I thought they look pretty tough to me. I mean, I don't know what he's talking about. They look tough. I'm not really sure what Coach Kennedy's trying to say. And then he gets Ivan Aska and Jeff McClain, and you get to see it with your own eyes, like, oh, that's what toughness is, because you could see it, you could feel it. When it got tough, you're down 7 with 3 or 4 minutes to go, didn't care. Those guys dug in harder. And when the moment demanded it, they took it to another level. So I was able to see what toughness meant, and learned pretty quickly that despite some saying you guys may not know what you're doing, you did know what you're doing.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that okay. Story. But if you really follow the program close and you're around it a lot, there's 3 guys I think that changed and really helped us get it going. We got here, we had 2 guys on the roster. We start 0-3. And that's when you wanted us out of here. But we didn't realize that you had all this consecutive winning seasons. You got to keep going. But we were able to do that, and I think Isaac Miles, Ivan Aska, and Jeff McClain, in their own individual way, because of their competitive greatness and their toughness and their ability to play the way Coach wanted to play, I think that's what got us from here to here and really changed, the course of our program.
And sorry, Isaac, I didn't get his name in, but he was an integral part of that toughness as well.
I think I found Isaac Miles hiding from class in Polk Library one time. I found him in a lot of different places.
Is that right?
Maybe I never found him in here though. So, one of your best calls, extending the stay in San Jose. Where'd that come from? Can you give me a little bit of background? I mean, just come off
Yeah,
your head.
it came from my head. Some people can launch rockets. They're smart enough to do that. Some people can, cure diseases. I just come up with stupid sayings. It's grammatically incorrect, by the way, but I don't know why it popped into my head. There was no prep. You don't prep for things like that. You just don't. And it just popped into my head, and I didn't actually realize I said it till we played back the moment, I think later in the game, and I went, golly, that was kind of weird. But for whatever reason, people loved it. It stuck, and it's a famous saying in the lore of Murray State basketball now, but no prep.
Do you remember where you were when that?
I was sitting, listening to the game, watching it on a monitor in my office. As I didn't go to the game, but I had Neal tuned in and was listening, and Jeremy Latimer and I were working together at Southeastern Book Company, and would he hit the shot, that building of 50 employees erupted. You had the entire place was either listed somehow, and Jeremy Latimer comes running down the hall, and we are in full celebration mode. But I was fortunate enough to hear it live when he made the call, just because we worked so hard as a program to get that second win, and it was before I got here, and Coach Newton and them had done such a great job, and so the program was held to that standard of being able to get that win, and when you guys were able to do that, against a great Vanderbilt team, it just elevated the program. Okay, now we're legit as far as the country is concerned.
And you talk about the town, we've mentioned it a couple times. My wife was a middle school teacher that time, and when the shot went in, we were dating at that time, but she said they're running through the halls at the middle school here in town, at the place of business.
And how many stories do you hear of where were you when we beat Colorado State? None. I'm just telling you, that's the difference right there. Wasn't that they're both great wins,
right,
but you have an iconic win, and then the other one, we expected to do that. There you go.
All right, Neal, we'll get to a couple great stories, and I got a bunch to choose from. We have a big win at Tennessee Tech.
Yeah.
I think it was Isaiah's senior year. Maybe we win 44-39, 46-41. We win. But you had a couple shots, some things to say on the bus.
Oh, what happened? There was more combined turnovers between the two teams than field goals made. It was bad. It's just one of those nights. If you see enough basketball, you're going to have one of those games. But most of the time, you have one of those games, you lose. This team was good enough that, hey, sloppy, tough night, still won. It's pretty good. So I think that was Tech, the first leg of the Tech-Jacksonville State trip. I think we practiced at Tech the next morning. And then we were on the bus, and the Cardinals had made a trade. So Winder and I were talking about a baseball trade. And Steve gets on and says, man, you're in basketball season. You guys still talking baseball. He goes, I like baseball, but about 15 minutes, I'm ready to go home. I was like, yeah, Coach, I felt that way last night. And Coach Small sitting across from me, and I thought he was going to die of laughter. He was snotting out through his nose and tears rolling down his cheeks. And I had to repeat it because you didn't hear it. But I also know you say that joke when you win. If you'd lost, I would have kept my mouth shut.
Yeah. We were talking about this last decade, Kenny, decade and a half. What do you think the separator's been?
I think the win in the NCAA tournament that Coach Kennedy and you were involved with established Murray State as it always been a darling of the mid-majors where Racers would get in the tournament and be a 14, 15 seed and get beat. And boy, we were happy to do that. But the expectations changed after that when Coach Kennedy beat Vanderbilt. And so I think that from a recruiting standpoint, that was able to elevate. There's been, better players, more talented players. I think too that the foundation that Coach Kennedy set, that you were able to step into and put your own stamp on it, which I really was impressed by that, because Coach Kennedy, told me when he got the job that he was asked at his press conference, how he wanted to play offensively, and he said he wanted to score in the first 7 or 8 seconds of the shot clock. And I was like, okay, this is going to be great, and he did that. If he had a breakaway layup, he'd take it. But other than that, he was pulling that thing out and massaging it. And so it was, games in the 50s and 60s, but strong defensively and toughness, as we talked about it. And I think you're able to come in and keep the toughness and the focus defensively, but allow a little more freedom offensively. You empowered your players to be able to be a little bit more aggressive offensively. And there's two ways to town, right? It's not anything any better or any worse than you did with Coach Kennedy, but I think better players started coming. Matt McMahon was able to carry that. That worked with you, had a great knowledge of how to win at Murray State and to be able to recruit great guard play. And we were able to see that continue to be elevated, and along comes Ja Morant, and to campaign to Ja, to Jonathan Stark, to just great player after great player that were able to to be able to lift the program to where it is today.
A great story. After that season, Darren Boatwright was an assistant AD at the time, and he put a note on everybody's desk, opened up the card, and he said, "Man, fun watching you guys this year. I hope you really enjoyed it. 31 wins, that'll never happen again.
Yes.
Hope you really appreciated it." And it's happened 2 more times, and a 29-win season. And so it's really been fun. And so now we've transitioned in the Missouri Valley. Give me your thoughts, kind of first year through on the league. Obviously, terrific coaching. The venues were good. We're used to a lot of the teams. We played them a lot in home and home back in the non-conference. But start with you, Neal. Just your thoughts on the league.
I think in the OVC, I was used to really guard-dominated teams being the best teams. In here, a lot of great inside players, interior players. Mm-hmm. That was, I think, the shocking piece to me, is how many teams had those instead of just a couple of teams at the top. Almost everyone you ran into had that good talent, and also how much better the defense was across the board, mainly from top to bottom. So that's the thing that jumped out to me. But you could see first time through the league how much we have elevated ourselves in terms of competition. Tremendous league, and it's going to be a lot of fun watching the Racers in it over the next few years.
I think we saw it at Media Day when the other team's players showed up, and I can remember Neal and I commenting on, wow, there's some size, here in this room. And I think the physicality of the league obviously is different than we had seen in the OVC. But the biggest difference to me is in the Ohio Valley Conference, there never was a lot of depth in the league. So there was 3 or 4 really good teams, and then some teams that usually were 300 or higher, quite frankly, that were you could circle wins in the summertime almost. Coaches would never admit to that, and in the Missouri Valley there is none of that. There is not one game that you can circle on August 1st that we're going to get this one at home or on the road. And so I think having to play well every night is the biggest task to get used to. Is that in the Ohio Valley you could play 80% of your best and still get a win on the road, and you can't do that in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah. Ja Morant obviously has had some really, really good dunks here and some great moments. We have on one of our videos, we show and kind of, you call it the hype video. You watch the backdoor cut against Marquette, and who is it? I think Darnell made in the back, a little back cut, and they deny Morant. Morant gets the dunk. is there one play by Morant that just really sticks out to you where you just were like, and to give you an example, we're at Evansville campaign sophomore year, and we're piecing it together. We won about 4 or 5 in a row now, and that team ended up having a big winning streak. But he gets 35 at Evansville, and I go to the locker room. We're happy we won, but I met with the staff, and I was like, guys, he ain't gonna be here next year.
Yeah.
So is there one moment with Morant where you just said, whether it's a dunk or just a special play he made where you were like, he's different?
That dunk was my favorite, but the thing that told me, because he got all the hype in the summer after his freshman year, I didn't see it. It's like, I think he's pretty good, but I don't think he's as good as they're saying. But the thing I noticed about him as point guard, he's making passes. You're fundamentally taught, hey, don't one hand pass that. You need to make it with 2 hands. He kept making them with one because they weren't expecting him to make it. So he was drilling them through the needle, getting easy layups off these things, and he just continued to do that. And I thought, my gosh, he can do it. I can kind of see what he can do. Just the many skills that he had. They would double team him. It was like 3D chess. I know I'm going to dribble here. I'm going to roll here. I'll have this guy open. He just was just an amazing floor general, and to watch him grow that sophomore year became pretty evident really quick that he's not going to be back after this season.
I think what his athletic ability was amazing, but his cerebral approach to the game, where he saw things happening before everyone else on the floor did, and he knew exactly where all other 9 players were. And there would be so many times during a break on the broadcast, Neal and I would be an advertisement break, and we'd look at each other and say, have you ever seen anything like he just did in person? There were so many of those discussions that in real time I'd never seen. One of my favorite stories about Ja is we were sitting on after practice one day on the press table, and he was looking at the banners, and he asked me about Marcus Brown, and he had never met Marcus, and he said, tell me about Marcus and what made him a great player here. So I was describing Marcus, and then Ja said, what don't you like about my game? And I said, this was in his sophomore year, and I said, oh, Ja, I said, old coaches now, I said, we get nervous when guys leave their feet and jump up in the air trying to find a pass instead of making a pass. And sometimes you get a little trouble with that, and he very humbly, he said, Kenny, you're right. He said, I do that a lot. He said, but the difference is I stay up in the air a lot longer than those guys you coach. And I said, and he was being very respectful. And I said, you're exactly right. Yeah. Case closed.
Yeah. It's the campaign used to jump like that a lot, and make those plays. But I don't think, unless you've coached those guys and been around those guys, to really understand and appreciate how brilliant basketball IQ and how they really process the game. I don't think everybody really understands that they really know more than the coach almost. You know what I mean? To where, and I've been fortunate, I had a lot of good point guards, but those guys' basketball skill and IQ, is just off the charts. And that's one cool thing, and you guys can talk about this, and it's a little bit tied into Hoopalooza, but we've had 21 conference players of the year here. We show a slide in recruiting. 10 of them were drafted, went on the NBA. But in the last year, Ja Morant's been back on campus at a game. Campaign's been back. Popeye Jones and Jonathan Stark popped in the fall. Okay, Marcus works for me. Isaiah Cannon was back for the reunion. Jeff Martin was back for the reunion. And I may be missing one or two guys that are on that slide that we show. That's cool to me. I mean, that's big time to me. And they are all giving of their time. I mean, we've got Ja as body armor contract. We got body armor. We got water and body armor for days. We got hyper ice massage guns, and all those guys are really giving of their time. And that's what I think makes this place what it is.
Yeah, the ability for them to want to come back with all of the opportunities they have to spend their free time, to come back, even 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later, to come back and see the impact that Murray State had on them growing up. And I think we take that for granted here, and that's the fan base, that's the community, because head coaches come and go. But the fan base is the knit, the tie that keeps them wanting to come back and talk about their experience here, and it's always so positive to see that.
We're going to go to a little lightning round here in a second, but I've got a lot of people talk about this story, man, this funny story you had in Alaska, and I can't go through this podcast without having you tell this. But I want the audience, here's what I want you to evaluate at the end of this story. Would have Mick Cronin kept Neal Bradley on staff, or would he have sent Neal Bradley home on a red eye that night? So we beat Alaska Anchorage, we stayed to scout San Francisco and set the stage. You're supposed to go get our rental car and have it warmed up and ready for us. And here we go.
I was just volunteering to be nice. I actually wasn't supposed to. I saw Dave working hard, and I said, hey, if you'll give me the keys, I'll go out and get our rental car. But, okay, so he hands me the keys. I left out a different door than we came in. So that got me turned around. So I walked to where I thought was a parking lot, and the car wasn't there. So, oh my gosh. So it's cold. What is it, about 3 or 4 degrees? It was not that cold for Alaska, but it was pretty cold to me. So I backtracked and tried to get into the door that I came into, and it was locked. I couldn't get in. So I had to circle and try doors. Finally found one I could get into, and sat down and called Dave Winder on the cell phone and said, where did we park? And he says, he could barely understand me because I guess my lips were frozen. And he said, it's out there by the baseball field, or something like, oh yeah, I remember where it is now. So he told me. So I'd gone the opposite direction. So I headed to the baseball field, and I get out there and reached in my pocket, and there's no keys. There's no keys. So I'm still frozen. So now I have to backtrack all the way back. It's about halfway around the arena to get back to the door that I know opens, because none of the others work. And I got in there, and I'm backtracking, looking where the keys. I couldn't find them. I mean, I was destitute. And I get in there, and there they are, where I sat down to make the phone call to Dave. So I picked them up. I got out there, had to walk all the way back around. Also, didn't have the best of underwear on, I guess because it was hot. The elastic was down, so they're down about, thanks for goodness I had plants with crotch, because they didn't go all the way down to my ankles, but they're about down to my knees by the time I got out there. And I promise this is the case. I opened it, and I turn the key, it starts, and I look, and here come our coaches out of, it's like, oh no. This is not going to be good. So
looking for a warm car.
Looking for a warm car. It's cold. It's long night, so they're getting ready to get in. And of course, they get in the car and it's cold, and I have to explain that. Then
we go in there and it is freezing.
Of course, so it's 3 degrees.
Neal gives us the story, and we are in tears. I mean, I think it was me, Small, Dave, maybe Kane was with us too, because Matt scouted Alaska Anchorage, so he was back with the team. And Small, I mean, we're in tears laughing. And the only thing I said was, hey, Neal, let me ask you one question. Would have Mick fired your or no, I think I said, hey, what would have Mick Cronin done? He goes, he'd have fired my
He would have had Matt Grady take Neal to the airport, put him on the first plane out of here, and send him home. Although I actually don't think he'd do that. Mick and I had a good relationship.
Yeah, we just joking, Coach.
But we have fun about it.
Yeah. You know, one thing, we were talking about this the other day, all the former guys, you know, whether it's Coach Kennedy and, you know, we talked about Coach Edgar and even Mick. My last year, he was going to come here and start a series here after we got we finished top 25. We don't get an NCAA tournament bid. Mick's like, hey, we'll come down there. If you're back, I'm going to come there. I'm going to start a series down there at your place. And so, that kind of speaks about, the relationship he has, here as well. All right, speed round real quick. Worst road trip you've ever been on?
Oh, I got mine. It's the Bracket Buster trip to New Jersey to play Ryder.
Yeah, amen.
Because we got the itinerary from Eric. I had it. going to be at the hotel at 11:20 in the morning. It was awesome. But we're in line at the check-in gate, not at the gate to the plane. And I saw Eric call Coach Kennedy up, and his shoulders slumped. And I thought, uh-oh, we have a problem, and an issue with the plane. So they put the players and the main coaches on it, and they said some of us are going to be on other planes, and I knew what that meant. I was in the some of us category. So I also remember poor Dusty May had the flu, curled up, sick as a dog.
Dusty May, now former Final Four coach.
Yeah.
Him, Chad, Dollar, and myself are the 3 assistants, and Dusty is laying on the Charlotte airport floor. I mean, he is sick as a dog.
Oh, yeah.
We beat Ryder that day.
Yeah.
We go up there and we beat Ryder. Any bad road trip?
I don't know if it was bad from the trip. The trip we came back after beating Memphis 2 years ago, the night of the tornado in Mayfield, and we were, what a great win we had. We'd come from 13 down, I think.
Yeah, at halftime. Right?
Yeah, and get the win, and we get on the bus, and it was amazing. All of a sudden, everyone's on their phones. We're excited, and you started seeing what was happening, in our community, and then we roll back into town, and the power's out. And so, Murray's dark at 1 or 2 in the morning when we get back, and it was obviously the tornado had just devastated our area.
Yeah, going through that was awful. That was awful. I was living, a little bit outside of town and kind of experienced it. And you go through that with your kids, man. That's obviously people were affected way worse than I was at that time. But that's just a horrible, tragedy there. Let's flip gears. Best road trip.
The best road trip to me was that Alaska trip, and it was one that I really didn't want to go on. It was going to be a long trip. I was dreading it. I didn't want to go to really Alaska, and it turned out to be my favorite trip. There were so many great experiences. Besides winning the games, it was just such a wonderful experience to get to meet new people, to get to see that part of the country. To go to the press room, and they have Hot Pockets in there. That's what they were famous for. So that was our press food. But and to see, not many times you're heading off to a restaurant and you're stopped by a moose who is in front of the bus. So that was pretty neat.
And you drive by the houses, and they have pet deers. They've got their deers fenced in.
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing about Alaska. When I was in college, that's the one state I've never lost in, 6-0. 3-0 when I was at Alabama and 3-0 here. So I'm never going to finish undefeated there. But when we were there with Alabama, they said the tour guide was like, hey, I can take the charter bus. We can drive right over this lake if you guys want me to and take the shortcut. And everybody was like, heck no. And so we were like, well, how do you know, when you can go on top of the lake or over top of the water and when you can't with the cars? And they go, well, you got one car that goes in too early, and then you get one car that goes in too late, and that's how we know. And I was like, take that bus the other way. So, what about you, best road trip?
I think just NCAA tournament experiences are so different than as a coach. When we would go to the tournament, we go early the day before and experience usually all 8 teams coming into the press room, and the head coaches going through that and watching practices and seeing that. But probably, the one at Hartford when Ja has a triple double, and to see it was we played 11 a.m. to see it was sold out at 11 a.m. and to see 18,000 turn into Murray State fans was pretty phenomenal. And then obviously he played so well, and the team played well to get that win over Marquette.
The tournament, you just hope everybody gets a chance to experience that. It's just, I always judge the Powerade tastes better. Everything's just a little bit better there, man. So, favorite Murray restaurant?
Right now, it's the Keg. I love their salmon is my favorite food in town. So at the moment, the Keg.
Yeah, that's a big spot for us. I love the Keg as well. What about you?
Yeah, I think the Keg. I mean, but what we're famous for is the Dairy Queen, right? I mean, what other business, has a countdown to opening every year at the elementary school? 30 days to opening, and so Hal Kemp and his crew through the years have made Dairy Queen.
That's the
special.
one. After my first year, Cass is born. and Hal Kemp puts out, hey, free Dairy Queen for life. That's my gift to him. And I would never, you could never imagine, and now they've changed it a little bit now with the curbside,
Right.
but that line used to go from here. I mean, it would go for blocks.
Yeah.
And so Hal told me one day, he said, hey, whenever you come around back, put your order in, get you in, get you out. Somebody said when I left here, they said, what was the biggest perk you got in Murray? I said, man, being able to go through the back at Murray at Dairy Queen.
And I got to hear that story. We were a CBS Sports Radio affiliate. We had Jim Rome, and he told it on the Jim Rome show. Yeah. And as soon as he gets off the air, Prohm goes, that would be like the biggest thing in my life. If I had that, I would want nothing else. Free Dairy Queen for life. Dilly Bar, I want it right now. Get me a Blizzard right now. So a lot of life in that one.
Favorite call of Neal's?
There's so many, I think I don't know if I could pick one. I think his ability to escalate with the play, to be able to know that it was going to be a monumental play, and the tone of his voice followed that, and it just makes it so much better. I get goosebumps right now thinking about some of the plays that that he was able to articulate. Ja's dunk was a great one that he did. There's just so many that he was able to. The Vanderbilt call at the end was fantastic. But to be able to do that and then his voice and his ability to rise to the occasion to say it correctly is something.
The one that I love, and I've seen it for years since I got here, is the Aubrey Reese.
Yeah.
He did it again.
Yeah.
He did it again.
Yeah.
He did it again. Reese did it again. Is there one, and I hate to put you on the spot, is there one that just sticks out to you at all? I mean, you've had so many,
It was the Denaro Thomas buzzer beater. And the reason, you have to think, as a radio guy, calling a buzzer beater in the NCAA tournament for a win, it's what you want to do. Besides a national championship, you want to do that. Check that one off the bucket list. That was amazing. And I'll never have another call like that in basketball, that's for sure. But maybe for football. But there was nothing like that. The euphoria from it, it was just amazing. So that's my best call, at least in my mind.
I'm going to put you on the spot now. Cardinals Game 7. Would you rather call Cardinals Game 7 of the World Series or a Racers Sweet 16 chance to go to the Elite Eight?
Okay. Cardinals Game 7. Come on, Steve. I love the Racers, but if it's me calling a Game 7 of the World Series, I'm going to take that one. But that is on the spot, though. I'll have to give you credit for that. So sorry, fans. That's probably not the answer you wanted, but that is the one you got.
Biggest thing you'll miss about your partner?
I think he is so professional at what he does that it made me so much better, and I knew it got to be that literally it was like a marriage. We knew what the other one was gonna say. I remember the very first game I did with him. To know when to start talking, I would watch his mouth, so that I made sure he had quit talking, because you never want to talk over each other, and we got to the point that we could literally in split second, one of us would finish talking, the other one would start talking. And so but the friendship we shared, we talk. You spend so much time on the bus, getting set up, that you just become great friends, and sharing our lives, that's what I'm going to miss the most. Is I think he's going to have to be there 2 hours before every game and come down and sit and visit, before the game time, but instead of just sitting in the stands being a fan.
What about you, Neal? What do you miss about Kenny?
Well, it was exactly what he said, the friendship, and we, I don't think any of us, and I throw Dave in there, if any of us makes any misstep, the others are pouncing right on top of it. And but that's what made it fun. And when you're trying to survive a lot of time on the road, it was an absolute blast. So we shared the good times, but also if someone messed up, we had a lot of fun with that. But the laughs I'll certainly miss. no doubt about it. But Kenny, as far as a color analyst, and I've told this to everybody, he's the best that I've ever had because he's done so many things. And you mentioned it earlier in this. He's been an administrator. He's been a coach. He's recruited. Think of all the games I've done, Steve. You mentioned over 700 basketball games or wins or whatever it is. I guess wins. Yeah. I've never been in a locker room at halftime. I've never heard you chew anybody out. I've never seen the euphoria whenever you get a big win, the crush whenever you get the big loss, when your season ends, when you think you're going to go to the Sweet 16 and you don't go. I don't know anything about any of those things, and Kenny can take me through all that as an administrator, and he just brings a presence to our broadcast that no one else can bring. There's no one else we could bring in and take his place.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'll miss is just your professionalism, and that we knew you cared as much as we did, you know what I mean, on the outcome. But we could also trust you completely. And you knew when you could joke.
Right.
And you knew when we may be a little bit upset.
Sure.
And you just always knew how to handle the situations, to enjoy those moments. You know, that Dave's a great part of y'all's team and the stuff he does. And that's what, to be able to bust each other, you know what I mean,
right.
and rib each other. And that's part of it. That's part of great fellowship and great camaraderie and great teamwork. But that's the one thing, and I told people this as we were trying to replace you, and replace is the wrong word because it'll just, the next one get to be the play-by-play guy. You know, your professionalism and the way you handled everything. But I just always talk about investment, right? You want people who are invested. And I truly wholeheartedly believe you are 100% totally invested in what we were trying to do, in the role that you played, and you supported the role we played. And whatever you saw on that bus, or whatever you saw at pregame, or whatever you saw behind the scenes, it stayed right there, and that says a lot about who you are, and
it'll
go in the book, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
the other thing that'll go in the book for Neal, every arena that Neal ever went into, he had a made basket. He went out and had a made basket, and we were playing at Alabama when Matt was here, and we were at practice the night before, and the guys were warming up, and I happened to be sitting in the end zone, and Neal was going to go ahead and get his shot in. Well,
tell the rest of it. Panunzio, I did an interview with him. He made me late.
Yeah, he did, yeah. So Neal was late coming in. Well, Matt was getting the guys. Practice was starting, and they were all on the baseline, and he started talking to them and was facing them, and Neal was shooting on the other end. Well, Neal got fouled like 5 times in a row, missing his layup. It couldn't make his layup, and the players were watching, and they start smirking and laughing, and Matt doesn't know what's happening, and he's livid that they're not paying attention. Well, he turns around, and Neal's down there getting offensive rebounds, trying to get his shot to go, and finally he got it to fall. But it'd be neat to know how many arenas that you made shots in. That would be a number that would be nice to have.
I'll close with this one Neal Bradley story. My first year head coach, we go on our first road trip, and I'm looking at the itinerary, and I'm looking at the rooming list. And I'm going down the checklist of players, and all right, this is how we're doing this, and coaches. And then I'm looking at this, and I see this guy on here, Joe Smith. And I'm like, who in the hell is Joe Smith? And why are we traveling Joe Smith? Like, who the hell is this? Who is this guy? Right? And so, man, I call Fred, I think I call Fred. I'm like, man, Eric, who in the world is Joe Smith? Like, I don't know, Joe. Who's this guy traveling with us that I don't even know? He's like, man, Steve, that's Neal Bradley's real name. I said, hell, I had been here 6 years almost. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So last thing, starting 5, Murray State, you start. If you had to put your best 5 together, just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll give you a sub off the bench, and then we'll wrap this up. Neal, you start.
All right, and I'm going to go through my era here. So when I was here calling games, Marcus Brown, Popeye Jones, Isaiah Cannon, Ja Morant, and Cam Payne. and I'll bring Jonathan Stark off the bench.
Pretty good group there.
Mine's very similar. Popeye, Marcus, Isaiah, Ja, but I throw Isaac Spencer in there, who was a 4-year starter, and then I bring Cam off the bench there, which is because Isaac Spencer was a warrior. He was a great player here, and sometimes goes without. But we could have another 5 that might,
that could beat. On certain nights could beat that 5. And we talked about a lot of coaches, and I don't want to leave. And Isaac Spencer made me think about it because he played a big part in recruiting. But Tavestra Anderson's another one who he's got a great connection. And again, that's what makes this place special. And they all say, we all say we. I've been following this program, part of this program in some form or fashion, almost 20 years now. And so, guys, thank you. I appreciate you being a part of Courtside with Coach Prohm. Neal, thank you. You are the best at what you do, and you will be truly, truly missed as a friend and as a head coach. And so thank you from everybody involved in our program and with the athletics, but most importantly, all the games you've called. We all think the world of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
We will see you next month with the next Courtside with Coach Prohm. Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, Neal, and appreciate all you guys do for this program.